and welcome to the Astranti Strategic Analysis video for the August Management Case Study exam on Sparkspace. Now, Sparkspace is an odd company, quite a difficult industry, perhaps at least initially, to analyse because, of course, it's on the server resale and high-performance computing industry. And this is one that we're probably not very familiar with. We've all used computers, we've all used cloud computing, but we don't really know much about it. But actually, like most industries, like most companies, we can actually apply a lot of the same models, a lot of the same theories to it. So at the moment, we know that Sparkspace is a successful company in the server resale, high-performance computing industry, based in West End. They have large revenues up in the billions, and they have employees in the thousands. So let's take a look at the company. And the way we're going to look at the company is through the rational model. Now, the rational model is essentially looking at where we are now, using theories such as SWOT analysis, 5 forces, PESTLE, internal analysis, value chain, and where we want to be, using theories such as mission statements, ethics, corporate social responsibility, governance, stakeholder mapping, and finally the business strategy. So the business strategy is the bridge, how we're going to get from where we are now to where we want to be in the future. And the first thing we're going to do is look at where we want to be. Where does Sparkspace want to be in the future? And we'll kick off by looking at mission statements. So what is a mission statement? Well, a mission statement is about your company, what your company is all about. Who do we exist for? Why do we exist? What do we wish to achieve? So what does Sparkspace wish to achieve? Now, the good thing about a mission statement is it provides a common purpose. Provides a common goal, common focus for the organization through strategy. And one of the reasons why it works is because it ties all of the people within the organization, all of the different business units within the organization together, gives them a common goal, a common purpose to work towards. Now, a company like Sparkspace, given the variety of the jobs it does, the nature of industries that are very consultancy based, very bespoke client based, is that we may have a lot of different project teams, a lot of different departments, not really working together. They're all involved in their own jobs, their own roles. And as such, they perhaps lose sight of the grand overarching objectives of the company itself. And therefore, by having this common ground, this mission statement that we're all buying into, we're all part of, we can all work together. We all know what we are doing. We're not just cogs in the machine, we're cogs working towards an overall objective. But interestingly enough, we were not given any information about mission statements, about overall overarching objectives in the pre-C. So, what makes a good mission statement? Could it be that the management at Sparkspace simply didn't know how to come up with a mission statement, didn't know what went into a mission statement? Well, a mission statement is supposed to be something that is fairly ambiguous, not a really specific target, not that we want to have a 20% market share in a particular industry by the year 2017. That's too specific. A mission statement should be broad. It should be applicable to anything that the organization does. And we can see here the 4 key elements of a good mission statement. So first of all, purpose. So why does the organization exist? Who does it exist for? And what do they wish to achieve? Well, we can see from the pre-C that the company is striving to be somewhat a market leader, striving to be a successful company in the high-performance computer market and in the server market. And that they exist to provide high quality, usable, strategic information to their clients. It's almost incidental that the services, the products they provide are high performance computing technology. Essentially, they are existing to give their clients more information to help their clients with their own business. That is their overall goal. That's why the company exists. It's to provide high quality information that allows for strategic decision making. So how does the organization compete? Is the next one, the strategy. How are they going to compete in the server industry? How are they going to compete in the high performance computing industry? Well, in the high performance computing industry, SparkSpace actually has a lot of intangible assets, a lot of patents. It's one of the most innovative companies when it comes to the HPC market. And in the server market, it aims to compete by adding the most value. The difference between the HPC market and the server market is that the server market is highly commoditized. There's very little room for differentiation. So you can compete on price by being the cheapest, or you can compete on providing the best overall service by adding additional value-adding activities. And that could be in the form of more specializations for the customer's needs, for the client's needs. It could be by the level of attentiveness provided by our consultants. It could be the level of maintenance, the level of after-sales service that we provide. The next one is the values of the organization. So what does the organization stand for? Quality, value for money, innovation, all of these are relevant to the organization, to SparkSpace. It was reiterated many times in the case study, the need for high quality. If you remember looking at the job vacancy adverts, every single job vacancy for all the different positions, all the different vacancies mentioned about the culture of quality management. Another one that was incredibly important was innovation. All the different initiatives, such as the Spark Innovate initiative with the Western University, and how that has provided a lot of commercially viable products that the company has used. We can also see the value that it places in its patents, the value that it places in its research and development by the high level of intangible assets in the statement of financial position. And finally, policies. So this is more to do with how your staff work, the values that they follow, and what is generally expected of them. Another thing that came up consistently was the importance of good customer service, the importance of meeting clients' needs, the importance of fantastic customer manner. That was another thing that came up repeatedly in those job applications. So based on all this, an example of a mission statement that would suit SparkSpace could be providing high quality and innovative information to help meet our clients' needs, because that would, in a sense, cover all of these bases. And again, we move on to more objectives, more performance measurement. Now that we know what we want to achieve, we now need to figure out how we are going to achieve it by breaking it down into objectives, by measuring those objectives to see if we are meeting the required level of performance. We weren't really given any specific targets in the case study. There wasn't anything that said we have to achieve revenue of this level by this amount of time, because an objective is a breakdown of the mission statement. It's the building blocks that go into making our mission statements. So we work towards our goals, towards our objectives, and that in turn allows us to move to our overall strategy, or allows us to achieve our overall strategy. And it could be that if we do not have any specific strategic targets, if we are given some in the unseen, that's all right. If we are not given any, then that could be considered a weakness in the company's approach, a weakness of the organization, a weakness of the planning of the organization. Because, of course, as I mentioned on the previous page, that if we do not have an overall objective to work towards, we do not have a common ground to unite employees, a common ground to unite business units, something to work towards together. And if we do not have an adequate way of measuring our performance to see if we are on target to meet those objectives, then that is a weakness as well, because we are not checking to see if we are underperforming. We are not checking to see where we are overperforming. And perhaps by not doing that, we cannot take the information of where we're being efficient and apply it to the areas of where we're being inefficient. And one thing that could work well here is the balanced scorecard. Now, the balanced scorecard basically understands that financial performance is not the only measurement. We also have things like customer satisfaction, staff satisfaction, quality management, all these things that are important in meeting our overall objective. And we do know that they use balanced scorecards because on one of the job vacancies for a management role, there was a section that said bonus payments will be dependent on meeting certain performance objectives, which will be decided on the basis of a balanced scorecard. So we know that the balanced scorecard does exist in the organisation. So now we move on to governance. And as this is not a UK-based company, there's no mandatory requirement to follow governance, but they are a listed organisation, so there are things that they could learn from it. And essentially, governance is all just about controlling and running the organisation in a way that is ethical and sustainable in the long run. And there are various ways in which the UK Code of Governance provides for this. So we have separate chairman and CEO. So the chairman obviously is the head of the board and the CEO is head of the company. And you have the same person both setting the strategies and the same person making sure the company fulfills and meets those strategies and goals, then you're unlikely to be too progressive because the person will set goals that they know that they can achieve because it makes them look like they've done a great job. You need independent, non-executive directors to ensure that the executive directors are not doing things for themselves, because of course the executive directors are employed by the company and the company's yearly performance reflects their bonuses, and therefore they may run the company in a way that is beneficial for the short term but not for the long term. But of course owners of the company want sustainable long-term growth. They don't want to leverage short-term performance against long-term performance. Next we have audit, nomination, remuneration committees populated by non-executive directors. So these are the committees that look into the board, look into the executive directors to ensure that they are running the company fairly. They're responsible for appointing non-executive directors, so ensuring that the right people with the right skills are employed by the company. And also the remuneration committee, they decide on how the directors are paid, how they are compensated for their work, to ensure fair pay for fair work. And also risk management. Now, risks affect any business, big or small, and the smallest risks can become larger if they are not properly dealt with. So it's always important to have a board that is looking out for risks and ensuring that they do not become more of a threat to the organisation than they need be. And I've got some other bits here about information and decision making, so ensuring that the right controls are in place so that the directors have the right information to make the right decisions. If the directors are making strategies for the organisation but they have no information about how well the company is doing, they have no information about the industry, etc., then those strategies may not be feasible, they may not fit in with what is possible. And finally, to ensure that they have regular meetings with shareholders, of the owners of the organisation, basically, to ensure that the owners' needs are being met, that any questions they may have about the organisation are being answered. So now let's apply governance to the case study, to Sparkspace. Well, as I said before, there's no real mandatory requirement for them to apply the UK Code of Governance because, of course, they are not a UK-based company, they are a Western-based company. But that doesn't necessarily mean that some of the parts of the Code of Corporate Governance are not relevant, because of course It's all about how companies are administered, how they are controlled, fairly controlled for all stakeholders. And therefore there should be something that every organisation can take from that. Now, we weren't really given much information about the structure of the organisation, about the board of the organisation, or the ownership of the organisation, but a few things that we can take from it was there was no mention of non-executive directors. Now, ideally, under the corporate code of governance, there should be half non-executive directors. Ideally, you should have a board of 12. There should be 6 executive directors and 6 non-executive directors. Now, the point of non-executive directors, of course, is because is to check that the executive directors are doing their job properly. Check that they are running the business for the benefit of the business and not for the benefit of themselves, and to check that they are well qualified and right for the role. There was also no mention of remuneration, audit, or nomination committee. The remuneration committee, obviously in charge of deciding the salaries of the directors. The audit committee in charge of risk management throughout the organisation. And nomination committee in charge of deciding who becomes an executive director. Now, the one I want to talk about mainly here is the audit committee. Now, the reason why I want to talk about the audit committee is because there is a lot of risk in the pre-scene. There was that large section on risk index, measuring the impact and the probability of risks, and a lot of risks were there. And also in the SWOT analysis, a lot of threats were there as well, a lot of threats to the organisation, and a risk management team should be in charge of ensuring those risks are mitigated. And the audit committee are in charge of ensuring that all these risk management processes are being put in place. And of course, if there is no audit committee, then there is no one to do this. So this could be a real weakness of the organisation here, particularly given the magnitude of the risks that face the organisation. And a few other things here. There was no real mention of meetings with shareholders, meetings or using the AGM, meetings with owners necessarily, or disclosing the director's pay. There was no specific section in the profit statement of profit and loss to say how much we were paying our directors. So given what we know about governance and given what we know about the board and the directors and the organisation as a whole at Sparkspace, we can't really make any firm judgment because we haven't been given enough information. But if the reason why we haven't been given that information is because there's no information to give, then we can say that governance is particularly weak at Sparkspace at the moment. So I hope you've enjoyed this sample video and more importantly found it useful. Before I go, I'd like to quickly tell you about a few of the products that we do here at Astranti Financial Training, specifically for our case study courses. We have a study text which details all the key theories in which you will be expected to use in your case study exam, as well as details of how to approach the pre-scene and the case study. We also have a series of course videos detailing how to answer case study questions. This is actually an area in which many students struggle. Most of the scripts that I've seen, the failing scripts that I've seen, has actually been due to poor case study technique rather than lack of knowledge. We also have a series of pre-scene analysis videos based on the current up-to-date pre-scene, detailing all the key bits of information and likely issues you may face in the exam. Next up is the industry analysis, a pack detailing information about the industry that the pre-scene company resides in, information about the key players within that industry, and more background information on the industry in general. We also have a range of mock exams created for each level and based on the current pre-scene, which is a great way to get some practice in before you sit the real thing. We also offer marking and feedback on those mock exams so you can see where you are going wrong and where you can improve. Finally, we have the masterclasses. These are 2 one-day classes taken by our expert tutors to give you all the hints and tips you need to really add to your chances of passing the exam. Also, if you take our full course, we offer a pass guarantee, which, provided you have met all the requirements of the pass guarantee, you will get a free resit on the next exam should you fail to pass. So once again, thank you for your time. If you're interested in any of these products, please visit the website www.astranti.com for more information. Thank you.